Rios claims the two had argued for years.
Homophobic neighbor, yelling homophobic slurs.
On just the second day of Pride Month, it appears that an actor has been the victim of a hate crime. Jonathon Joss, best known for his role as John Redcorn in King of the Hill, also known for his role as Chief Quixote in Parks and Recreation, was fatally shot in front of his former home in Texas, and police arrested a 56-year-old man in connection with that murder. Now, in this video, I'm going to go through some of the details in this story, including what his partner who was there at the time, what he recounted, as well as what the police are saying, because it's interesting, the reaction from the police, considering what his partner said, what a former or a friend of his also said, and the history, at least some of the history around the San Antonio Police Department. So I'll get to that in this video. I'll also get to later on just some more uplifting news around the general direction of where things are going. But let me start with the details that were shared by his partner through Jonathon Joss's Facebook page. Statement from Tristan Kerndy Gonzalez, husband of Jonathon Joss. My husband, Jonathon Joss, and I were involved in a shooting while checking the mail at the site of our former home. That home was burned down after over 2 years of threats from people in the area who repeatedly told us they would set it on fire. We reported these threats to law enforcement multiple times and nothing was done. Throughout that time, we were harassed regularly by individuals who made it clear they did not accept our relationship. Much of that harassment was openly homophobic. When we returned to the site to check our mail, we discovered the skull of one of our dogs and its harness placed in clear view. This caused both of us severe emotional distress. We began yelling and crying in response to the pain of what we saw. While we were doing this, a man approached us. He started yelling violent homophobic slurs at us. He then raised a gun from his lap and fired. Jonathon and I had no weapons. We were not threatening anyone. We were grieving. We were standing side by side. When the man fired, Jonathon pushed me out of the way. He saved my life. Jonathon is my husband. He gave me more love in our time together than most people ever get. We were newlyweds. We picked Valentine's Day. We were in the process of looking for a trailer and planning our future. He was murdered by someone who could not stand the sight of two men loving each other. I was with him when he passed. I told him how much he was loved. To everyone who supported him, his fans, his friends, know that he valued you deeply. He saw you as family. My focus now is on protecting Jonathon's legacy and honoring the life we built together. If your concern is how someone coped with trauma or how loudly they speak when recounting injustice and being ignored by authorities, then you never truly cared about my husband. Jonathon saved my life. I will carry that forward. I will protect what he built. Now, Jonathon Joss was apparently working on a revival for King of the Hill. Just this past Saturday, he had posted a video on Instagram discussing the revival, saying the fans get to revisit King of the Hill again, which I think is an amazing thing because it's a great show. He also added in the video that he had already done voice work on 4 episodes of the revival. Now, I want to get to what a friend of his said as well. And this clip also shows what the police said. So this is from a local news report from KSAT 12.
He was only there to go through his mail to see if a paycheck had arrived.
Yeah, he was waiting for a royalty check that he was going to be getting.
San Antonio police arrested 56-year-old Sigfredo Ceja Alvarez for Josh's murder. Rios claims the two had argued for years.
Homophobic neighbor, yelling homophobic slurs to them.
However, SAPD sent this statement that reads in part, "Our investigation has found no evidence whatsoever to indicate that Mr. Josh's murder was related to his sexual orientation," adding, "Should any new evidence come to light, we will charge the suspect accordingly."
All right, so I'm going to get to a bit of the history from the San Antonio Police Department, which makes me question their claim here, but also what makes me question this, that there is no evidence whatsoever to indicate a hate crime, is the fact that both his partner, who was there at the time, recounts what happened, and even if you don't want to believe him, the friend in that local news report was clearly aware of the homophobia that was being directed to him by that neighbor. So, look, maybe there needs to be, a further investigation into what happened here, but to straight out say there is no evidence whatsoever, when clearly there at the very least is some evidence, is insane. So this gets to the San Antonio Police Department, which I want to be clear, this isn't just an issue with this police department. I think this is an issue generally among policing, but an SAPD officer, this is from last December, was suspended for a second time for policy violations, misuse of department records. He had previously been suspended for using a homophobic slur. In addition to that, this story from 2018, 6 times a SAPD lieutenant has been fired. Will he get his job back? This individual has a long history of disciplinary problems, including 4 firings and 11 suspensions. He was in trouble again, accused of making a homophobic remark about Police Chief William McManus. Now, in both these cases, there were reasons why there was even a suspension to begin with, why this was even reported on, as this homophobic slur was said in front of a group of people, so there were several witnesses that saw it, and this was directed at a police chief in a public forum on Facebook. So both are situations where the police or the individual cannot deny what they had done. So clearly there had to be action taken in both these cases. But this gives you sort of, a hint at possibly some of the rot within this police department. And again, I don't think this is just isolated, but it is worth mentioning. And this leads to why there's a lack of trust in law enforcement that hinders reporting of LGBTQ crimes. Whenever you see data on hate crimes, understand you are just getting a fraction of the picture. A large portion of hate crimes that are committed are not reported as such because of the fear from the individual, from the victim, on how it will be addressed, if it'll even be investigated, and the unwillingness to really put themselves out there in a situation like this when they rather not have to deal with the police department at all. So this is an ongoing problem. And the other issue here is how a lot of media reports on this sort of thing. This is the New York Post headline of this story. King of the Hill voice actor Jonathon Joss killed in Texas shooting after argument with neighbor. Now, you want to argue? Well, there's no video of what happened, so you can't claim for sure what happened. Well, then, if you don't want to claim that it was a homophobic attack, how can you even claim that it was an argument? There is just a massive disconnect here between how these sorts of crimes are treated, both by the police and the media, and the impact on the actual victims. Compare that headline to this one. Pure evil. Transgender woman who viciously stabbed postal worker to death in NYC Delhi, sentenced to 15 years. Pure evil transgender woman who, by the way, claims she was acting in self-defense as she says she was punched several times, not excusing what happened here, but clearly there is more to the story than what is in the headline. There's clearly an intent here to give the reader a certain impression, whereas this doesn't even mention that a homophobia was potentially at the heart of this attack. So while it may feel that generally we have progressed as a society, and I'll get to some numbers later on that is showing that should be the case, and I think it is the case, there is still a lot of homophobia and anti-LGBTQ plus sentiment generally being posted online, especially on Twitter, where it is not only allowed but platformed. Michael Flynn Jr., who of course is the son of disgraced former General Michael Flynn, posting here, good morning and happy Sunday. No quotes today. Just want to post how I feel about Pride Month, quote unquote. And that's Ron Swanson of Parks and Rec throwing out a computer with a photoshopped pride flag over it. Now, a few reactions to this stupidity. McNasty posting, no one talks about gay people more than straight people, which, if you're on social media, is absolutely true. It is absolutely insane how obsessed straight people are with Pride Month. Nick Offerman posting here, Ron was best man at a gay wedding, you dumb F. Hashtag happy pride. Good point. Nick Offerman, of course, the actor of Ron in Parks and Rec. But the amount of money being poured into hatred is remarkable. J.K. Rowling using her Harry Potter wealth to fund anti-trans organization. The organization will offer financial support to individuals or groups in the UK or Ireland who want to fight trans inclusion. They go on to write here, the Harry Potter author has an estimated net worth of $1.2 billion, which is being put towards her so-called Women's Fund. It'll offer financial support to individuals and groups fighting trans inclusion, quote, in the workplace and public life, and in protected female spaces to set legal precedents and force policy change. The amount of hatred thrown towards trans people continues to be insane and disgusting. It's hard to know what to say about J.K. Rowling because of her absolute obsession with trans people. It is so weird that you have to imagine there's something deeper going on with her, because it's unexplainable how insane it is. I don't understand being so obsessed with hating other people based on how they identify. I'll never understand it. I'll never be able to explain it. I wish I could, find some sort of solution here to these lunatics, but it is a serious problem, and it needs to continually be acknowledged that anything J.K. Rowling touches, you should ignore. This gets us to, finally, some good news. Nearly 1 in 10 U.S. adults identify as LGBTQ. This according to Gallup data, showing that the number is now 9.3%. It has continually increased over the years as society has become generally more accepting, though if you just exist online, it definitely does not seem that way. But the reality is, yes, people are more accepting, especially Gen Z, a lot more open-minded, and it allows people to actually be their true selves. And I think this number is only going to continue skyrocketing as people are less afraid to both be themselves, but also find out who they are. So the breakdown by generation, Gen Z, of course, sitting at 23% identifying as LGBTQ, millennials at 14%, and then the number really drops off from there, Gen X, boomers, and the silent generation. Now, something else that is worth noting here that is interesting is that Gen Z is the only age group in which men are likelier to say they're bisexual than gay. Jessie Ford, a sociologist at Columbia, said that in her interviews with young people, they talk about wanting to be open with their sexuality and avoid rigid identities like straight or gay. And I think this is why bisexuality is now a preferred term among Gen Z, as it is more of an all-encompassing term and doesn't necessarily put you in any kind of box. And this gets to the idea of sexuality being fluid, and interests can change, things can change. You may meet someone and that changes your opinion on how you feel about certain people. It's really it doesn't make sense to put yourself in a box unnecessarily when you want to be open to experience and open to meeting new people, and not give yourself this mental barrier of what you should or should not be into. So I think these numbers are encouraging, and I think we're just going to see this increase as people become more open and more willing to try things or just be their true selves. But it's still worth noting the ongoing homophobia and anti-LGBTQ sentiment that the community feels, and especially trans people are constantly under, and we should be aware of and defend anyone who is under these sorts of attacks.